We are live, sir.
Okay, Anam. Thank you. I'll start the session. Hello and welcome to this Excel Bootcamp on the Zoom platform by LetsUpgrade. So basically, we are going live on YouTube as well. And it's great to see you people back in the fourth day, on the fourth day of this particular bootcamp. And I hope all of you are kind of taking a lot of value from this bootcamp, because Let's Upgrade organizes these kind of bootcamps to upskill you and help you to grow in terms of your career. So also, with respect to the data set, everything is shared in the Notion doc that was already discussed with you a few days back by Anam. I request all of you to please go back to the Notion doc and download the data sets from there. So in today's session, I'm going to open up my file that I will be working with. So we are going to work with the more complex functions. Yesterday, we completed up to text functions. So today I'm going to go ahead and work with the other functions that I feel are important to work with. So I will also just quickly consult what we have on the syllabus for today's coverage. So yesterday we did have pivot tables, but I feel pivot tables I will cover after I finish most of the other topics. The reason being that when I cover the pivot table kind of today, you will get a better understanding of it, because there are certain prerequisites that need to kind of be sorted out before this. Okay, I'll just get rid of any extra notifications that we have on screen so that we don't have anything to distract us. Well, now to begin with, just a quick review of what we did yesterday. So yesterday we had worked with a lot of important concepts like the if function. We worked with the function to get the grades. We worked with the if function to get whether the student is passed or failed. We also looked at the conditional formatting, where we could easily highlight and get information based on the numbers or values in a particular cell. We also spoke about discussing or working with different charts like the column chart, the bar chart, the pie chart, and the line chart. I also spoke about how to create and customize those charts, add data labels to it, how to add percentage values to your pie charts, etc. Then I spoke about dealing with the text functions. So today we are going to deal with some introduction to data analysis using what if analysis tools. I'm going to talk about solver. This is a very complex topic, but a very, very interesting and kind of important topic. Then I will also talk about how to work with some dynamic formulas and array functions. And I will talk about how to work with lookup functions. And finally, we will talk about how to deal with the pivot tables. So I'm sure all of you are geared up to kind of get in there. The rules, or basically the working or modus operandi for me remains the same. You can put across your questions into the chat, but again, a very sincere request to all the learners, please avoid spamming the chat, because when you spam, even your important questions are kind of, just they go away right on top, and then I have to keep scrolling and searching for some important questions. So please do not put one request or one thing more than once. It may happen that I may not be able to respond immediately, but I will get back to you as and when I look at the chat. So let's move ahead into today's session. And today I will deal with, first and foremost, the what if analysis features. Now, with respect to what if, we have the goal seek and data table that I'm going to discuss today. Now, when we talk about goal seek, what does goal seek actually mean? Okay. So goal seek is basically a situation, or used in a situation when you don't know exactly what the value should be based on a goal that you have set for yourself. Now I'm taking a very simple example, a very practical and an example related to students. So let's say there is a student who has appeared for 6 different subject papers, and the subject papers are, the marks for the students have been given to them. Now 5 subject paper marks have been revealed, whereas 1 subject paper mark or marks are still pending. So that's the 6th subject marks are still pending. Now what we need is, we need to understand how much should the student actually get? What is the screen shared? Can someone? Okay, I'll just share my screen. Sorry, I think I had forgotten to share my screen. Okay.
Yes, sir. It's
Okay.
sharing.
Okay. Perfect. Now here I've got the values. So I've got 70 in subject 1, 70, 65 in subject 2, 60 in subject 3, 64 and 72. Now in total, these values are already given to us. Now I have to find out of these 6 subjects in total, I have to score about 75% overall or 70% overall. So what should I score, or what should the student score in the 6th subject, so that he or she is able to attain the goal that has been set by her or him? Okay, the goal of 70%. Now here, the value that I'm concerned with is this cell's value. And I have a value here, which is actually being calculated. So one important thing, whenever you're working with goal seek, one cell, the cell that you're going to set the target for, should have a formula in it. This formula is very, very important. So it's important that you have a formula in that cell. Only then will you be able to apply the goal seek mechanism. Now, how do we go about with the goal seek mechanism? I'll explain that. So you start off first by selecting the cell that contains the formula, or basically the value that you want to set to a particular level or a particular goal. Once you've selected that, then you go to the data tab, and under the data tab, you've got this what if analysis command. So this what if analysis command is basically part of the forecast command group, which is available under the data tab. So always remember, like for me, I always prefer navigating through my commands using the tabs and the command groups that are there. So it becomes easier for people to find out. Okay. Now here, I will click the drop down for what if analysis, and I will choose goal seek. So when I choose goal seek, what happens is I have the option to set the cell. So let me just zoom this in for you a little so that you can see what exactly I'm talking about. So here I've got the set cell, okay, which is F10. Basically, I'm going to set the cell F10, which actually contains the formula, to a particular value. Now, the problem with this is you cannot set this to a reference. You have to set it to a static value. And then the third thing is by changing cell. So this is the cell that is going to determine the value, and you want to change that particular cell so that you can achieve the goal accordingly. Okay, now how do we go about with this? Let me explain to you. So first is for set cell, what I'm going to do is I've selected F10, which is actually the cell that contains the formula to calculate the average for me. Then to a value, now to value has to be set to 70. So I'm setting it to 70, and by changing cell. So when I say by changing cell, what does it mean? So I will select this cell, which is going to be the change cell or the changing cell, or the cell that I will change and update my percentage to. Now, once I've done this and I click on OK, it will take a few seconds, a few nanoseconds or a few seconds to actually calculate the value. And once you calculate it, it says that the person has to achieve 89 in that subject to get 70 overall as the percentage marks. And also it gives you a target over here. It says the goal seeking with cell F10 found a solution, and the target value was 70, and the current value is also 70. Now you can choose whether you want to stay with the solution or whether you want to revert back to the blank cell. So I will just say cancel for now. And when I say cancel, the entire procedure will be rolled back and you will be going back to the same value. Now, this is a situation when you have got one single value that you're trying to set based on another value or another formula. Now, let's look at a more complex scenario. So in this scenario, what we have is we've got this data table calculation that needs to be done. Now, these kind of data tables are normally available with insurance agents or people who are, working with financial instruments, where there are a lot of permutations and combinations possible in this. Now, before I explain the data table concept, I have to explain to you what this PMT function is. So basically, the PMT function is used to find out what is the outgoing payment, or you can say what is the you can say the EMI that is going to be charged based on a rate of interest, the number of years that you're taking the loan for, the amount of the loan, which actually is PV. PV stands for present value, and future value in most cases is always zero because you would want to pay off the entire loan. So future value is going to be zero. But this is an optional argument. You don't need to specifically put this argument. You can just leave it as it is. It could be just left and it will be treated as zero. Now, PMT's formula is going to be, first, you have to provide the rate, then you have to provide the number of payments, then you have to provide the present value, and you have to provide the future value. These are the important arguments that are to be provided. Future value happens to be an optional argument. Now, the important thing is, what I need to do is, I have to first, so I'll just delete this. Okay, I'll start with equal to PMT. PMT, it calculates the payment for a loan based on a constant payment and a constant interest rate. So here, there are two important things. There's a constant payment that's going out, and there is a constant interest rate. It's not a floating interest rate. So we can't do real complex calculations like in real world examples where we are having a floating rate of interest. Now I'll hit the tab key to invoke my, again, the window is showing. Okay, hold on.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Sir, can you just, I guess, can you just stop the screen share once?
1 minute, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, can you just now try to share? And when you're sharing, just select the display, or like if are you doing on the second screen or something?
No, it's just one screen on the laptop.
Okay. Okay, if you can just try it once again. Student, just give us a minute. We'll just sort this out. So while sharing screen, sir, did you get an option?
No, it just said share screen, and there are layouts and options that are there, where you've got layouts that are there by default, the normal layout, and then there's some second layout where I have myself speaking, and the camera will be there on the left hand side. And then there's one more where it's a slightly different layout. And then
Guys,
just a minute. Sir, your voice is echoing.
Yeah, just a minute. Sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, if you just share the, can you just click stop the screen? Yeah, click on the screen share once.
Okay, I've clicked on share screen. Okay.
Yeah. Just again, open to any screen share.
Okay. Share, done.
Yeah, click on the screen share again. So now I can see your windows. So yeah, click on the screen share again.
Okay, share.
Let me see the options. See, can you just close this?
Okay, I'll close it. Okay.
Yeah, and there's one option down there, show meeting.
Right, okay.
Can you just click on that once?
Yes, I've clicked it.
Okay, hide meeting.
1 minute. Hide meeting, okay, then.
Nope, this is still coming. I don't know what is the issue with this.
Sir, I think this is coming on YouTube, right?
I can also screen Zoom itself.
No, Zoom, okay, you can see it in Zoom also. Okay.
Yeah, so that was the thing.
Okay, I've hidden the video panel. Now can you see?
Yeah, now it's gone. Now it's gone. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe that video panel could be, no, the video panel will any which ways be seen if I have the camera, because that's the part where I can see the people who are there as well as my face as well. So, what do you want me to do? You want me to hide it and keep it?
Yeah, if you can just hide
okay, no issues.
The floating controls as well. Yeah, this is good. This is fine.
Yeah, floating controls will keep popping up if I need to normally I don't need to do anything, but just in case there is some chat, then I normally just go to that.
Yeah,
chat.
that's fine. That's fine. That we can take care.
Okay. I think that should be not an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Can
you,
I continue, sir?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Again, sorry. Apologies for that small interference in between. We had to resolve that problem. Okay. So the function that we are talking about here, it's a financial function. It belongs to the financial category of or financial library of functions. Now the function here calculates the payment for a loan based on a constant payment and also a constant interest rate. So as I mentioned, in real life, you cannot really use this like where we have got these floating rate of interest, but you will get an idea of it, how to work with it. So I hit the tab key to invoke my function. Now I will use Shift F3, which is actually the shortcut to open up the function arguments dialog box. Now, as you know, whenever I work with a new function, I prefer using this function arguments dialog box because I'm too weak in setting up my functions initially. So whenever you start with a new function, the reason why I want you to open up this function arguments dialog box is because you know exactly what that function is and what are the arguments within that function. Like when I place my cursor in the rate, area, I can see the information about the entire rate details. Again, for NPER, you can see total number of payments for the loan. Then PV is the present value, FV is the future value, and then there's type as well, which is normally at the beginning of the period and payment at the end of the period, okay, or omitted. So the future value and the type both are optional arguments, whereas the first three are important and compulsory arguments. So it's rate, then the number of payments, and the present value, or basically the principal amount. So here my rate is going to be in this particular calculation. For this calculation, I'm going to put the rate as this percentage cell, or the cell that contains 12%. Now the important thing is that everything has to be at a month level. So you have to take it at the payment level. So payments are happening monthly. So this has to be at a monthly level. Now this rate that you see, 12%, it's an annual rate. So I'm going to divide this by 12 to get the rate to monthly rate. Then the number of payments are in years. So I'm going to select this and I'm going to multiply it by 12. Because I have this in months, I want to get it in, sorry, I have it in years, I want to get it in months. For the present value, I'm going to select the cell that contains the present value, or you can say the principal amount. Okay. Now there is nothing that you need to do in this particular argument or this particular case. Yeah, Chaitra, do you have any question? Uttam, volume problem. What do you mean by the volume problem? Is the sound not very clear to all of you? Just let me know if there's some problem with the sound or with the camera or anything of that sort. That's okay. So now what we do is we just click on OK. And when we click OK, we get this value which says 22,244.45, which is actually, okay, no problem. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the update. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, thanks. Don't put any thing in the chat now because that will kind of distract me. So if you have any questions, you can put in the chat, but with this particular point, don't need to put anything because I've got the answer to it. So here you can see this is a negative value and also it is written in red. Okay. So that means that the payment, the PMT value that you get as a result of the PMT function, it is the outflow. So since it's an outflow, it's a negative value. Hence, it is going to be shown as a negative value. Now, this is the core understanding of how to work with this particular function. Now, let's move on to the calculation for the data table. Now, let's say you have a situation where you have been asked that, okay, these are the different rate of interests and these are the different years that people would want to take in. And based on that, we want to go in and find out what are the different values that people would pay for different rates of interest and the number of years. So obviously the thing is that having the lowest rate of interest for the highest number of years would be an ideal situation, but you may not get it. But this is a table that I'm going to show you how to create. So first thing, what we are going to do is, I'll just get rid of this. We are going to set up the data where we have the rate of interest on the different columns, and we have the number of years in the rows. Okay. And I have put the formula for the calculation inside this particular cell, which is sitting at the intersection of the row and the column. So if I double click, you can see it's picking up the values from these particular cells. Now comes the important part where you want to get the values for all these at one time. So what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and we are going to select all these cells. Okay, I'm putting my formula here on the intersection of these two, this row and this column. After we've selected all the cells, the next thing that we're going to do under the data tab, we've got what if analysis. Click the drop down and click on the data table. Now, when you click the data table, you have been asked what will be the row input cell and what will be the column input cell. Now, here you have to be a little careful. A lot of times I also kind of get, even though I've been using it for some time, I get a little confused in this case, which is the row input cell and which is the column input cell. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the row input cell, which is going to be the rate of interest. Okay. That is this cell, not any of these cells, because these are the ones that are going to vary whenever there is a change. And for the column input cell, I'm going to put in the number of years that are there and click on OK. Now, when you click on OK, so if you see the row input cell, I put in the percentage. That's the rate of the interest. So whatever is there in the row, okay, is going to be put as the row input cell. That means that particular argument will be put in the row input cell. That is the rate. And then whatever is there in the column. So you have got these years in the column, the number of payments in terms of years, that will be put into the column option. Okay, so that is how the calculation is going to be done for the data table. So we've looked at goal seek and we've looked at data table as well. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to discuss is the solver case. Now for the solver, I will move to another file, and that is going to be, I have another file that I will be dealing with. Just give me one minute. I'm just stopping my screen share. Okay, attendance link is already provided to you right in the beginning itself. So please hold on. I think you will get the attendance link towards the end as well. Okay, I've got the solver file ready. I'm just opening it up. So here we've got solver. Now Excel solver is basically a very, very useful tool when you have got situations where you have to deal with optimization problems. Now I'll give you a very simple example. If you have dealt with something called as linear programming problems, you would understand how this actually works. If not, don't worry, I'll explain how it works. So there's a simple scenario given to you that there is a company ABC that produces both footballs and basketballs. And each football costs about $12 to produce and sells for about $20. And basketball costs about 14 and sells at 23. So if you look at this, football is making about $8 per product or per unit, and a basketball is selling for 23 and buying costing it for 40. That means about $9 per basketball. Now the material and labor provided is mentioned, and also how much do you need to produce it is mentioned. So you've got this information about what resource is required in terms of leather, nylon, core, then the labor and the stitching. And you also have the available amount in terms of its corresponding unit of measurement. For example, 720 ounces of leather, 630 yards of nylon, 4,400 ounces of core, then 360 minutes for labor and 120 minutes for stitching. Now, using all this information, we have to optimize the problem where we are going to be dealing with the maximum profit. So we have to maximize the profit that we can do or work with the maximum profit. So here I have set up the data. So there are decision variables that you need to first identify. Your decision variable is basically how many footballs and how many basketballs should be actually made for maximum profit. Okay, so the objective function. Now the objective function here, so I'll just put in one football and one basketball, just for the sake of understanding. Now the objective function here is the profit, which is actually to be maximized. So how much are we making on a football? $8. And how much are we making on a basketball? It's $9. So in total, if we sell 1 unit of each, we are making about $17 in total. Now comes the constraints. So the constraints are leather, nylon, ounces of core, labor in minutes, and then the stitching in minutes. Now for each of them, there are certain units of leather, certain units of nylon, certain units of core, certain units of labor, and certain units of stitching that are required. So what we are going to do is we're just going to ignore all the calculations in terms of the different units of measurement. We'll just pick up the numbers. So here we've got 5 for football, and basketball we've got 4. And based on that, these constraints have been set up. Now, what we also need to do is how much can we go up to and how much is being used. So I have got this used value calculated for each of these constraints. Now, how is it calculated? I'm going to show you. So first and foremost, how do we get the profit value? So to get the profit, what I am actually going to do is I'm going to start with an equal to sign, and then I'm going to take in the multiplication of the footballs by the rate or the profit that we have achieved. Okay, that's about $8. And then I will put this in the bracket because I want this to be evaluated first. And then I'm going to add this value to how many times a basketball was produced. Sorry. So what this is essentially doing for me is it's giving me the calculation that says that for one particular unit of each of these products, I'm going to spend or I'm going to get about $17 as profit margin. Now, the point here is that there is an easier method of writing this complex formula where we are putting in the addition of 2 of them. So what we'll do is we'll use another function called as the sum product function. Sum product. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to put the equal to sign. Equal to sum product. Okay, in the autocomplete dropdown, it's available. You can just hit the tab key. And then here you have to provide the array. So keep one thing in mind, that the array has to be exactly of the same width for multiplication or applying the sum product. So we are going to select these 2 cells, okay, and then put a comma. The next thing that we need is these 2 cells. And then we close the bracket. Now what it does is it's going to multiply the footballs by the rate or the value of the football. It's going to multiply the basketballs by the value of the basketball. And then it's going to subtract the, it's going to add up the values in both the cases. Okay, so it's $17. Now, if I increase the football by 1 and make it 2, you will see it's 25. So this is how it is actually going to work for the calculation. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to take into consideration the constraints as well. So the constraints are 5, 4, 6, 3, so on and so forth. Now, my requirement is that whatever I do, how many ever footballs I produce, how many ever basketballs I produce, I should produce maximum, but there is a constraint. It's not unlimited. Like there's no resource that's an unlimited resource. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the used value. Now, how do we get the used value? How many units are made multiplied by how much leather is there required for 1 unit. Same way, how many units are made of the basketball required by how much leather does it take to make 1 unit of a basketball. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sum product function. Again, so I'll select all these cells together, put an equal to sign, and then I will type sum product, hit the tab key. Now you have to provide the array and you have to provide the other array as well. So look at the way I provide it now. In the first scenario, I didn't lock the data. I didn't lock any of the references. So I'm going to select these two cells. Once I've selected them, I'm going to lock this, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the value for these units to be made by all of the constraints, and then I will get the final value. So in this case, I'm going to lock this by pressing F4, comma, and then I'm going to select all these cells that are there, and I will close the bracket and press Control Enter. Sorry, 1 minute. Small mistake. Just let me check what is the error. Why am I getting that value error? Oh, I got the error. Actually, the error is that I have to lock this row, basically these two cells together, and I was locking it the other way. So I'll just sort it equal to sum product. What sum product does is, so basically if there are two arrays, okay. Now remember one thing, when you say array, array is nothing but a list of values. So you have two values here, one here and one here, okay. And then you have two values here as well. So what it does is, let's say 12 and 30. Now, if I take a sum product, this is 2 and this is 3. If I take a sum product of these two arrays, 2 will be multiplied by 12, that will be 24, and 3 will be multiplied by 13, that is 39. And then they will be added up to get you the sum product. So it first takes the product and then it takes the sum of your data. Okay. So here, let's just go back again, equal to, and then I'm going to select sum. I'm going to put in sum product here, sum product, hit the tab key. And these are the cells that I would want to work with. And I will lock them by pressing F4, comma, and I will select these two cells for the leather that is used. So only leather is what we are looking at. So which is correct. So if I make one football and one basketball, I will be using 9 ounces of leather. Let's see if I am able to take this down and see if I'm going to get the calculation. Okay. So 6 plus 3 is 9, 4 plus 2 is 6, 2.5 plus 2 is 4.5, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So we've got our entire constraints allocated. We've got the calculations done. Now it's the time to put all this information into the solver and get the output. So how do we get the output in this particular situation? Now, in order to get the output in this situation, what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and use the data tab. Under the data tab, there's the solver add-in. So first and foremost, if you don't have the solver add-in, you go to file. Okay, I'll show you how to activate it. Go to file, go to the options over here, and amongst the options, go to add-ins. When you click on add-ins, you have manage Excel add-ins. So you can see here, there is a solver add-in that is already active. At your end, if you don't have the solver add-in, it may be inactive. So what you can do is you can go ahead and you can scroll down. You go to com add-ins and click OK. So or go. Now when you click go, you will see that there is the solver add-in as well added to this particular Excel version of working. So you've got solver add-in, just keep it activated and click OK. Fine. Now after this, I will go to solver, and when I click on solver, there is already a solution that has been activated or set up here, but I'm going to show you each of them one by one. So to begin with, I'll start with the set objective. Now set objective is basically the cell that contains the final calculation. So this is the cell that contains the final calculation. That means I am going to check, okay, what is the value in this cell every time there is a new product being produced. So this is the value, because this tells me exactly how much profit am I going to get, this cell. Then what variables or what cells am I planning to change, or what are my variable cells? So B4 and C4 happen to be the variable cells. That is the units to make. So I'm going to manually go ahead and select these these two cells. These are the two cells that I'm going to be changing. So these cells, when they change, they are going to give me the actual value calculation. And then we've got the constraints. Now, first and foremost, we talk about the non-negativity constraint. That means the products that are being produced cannot be negative. So I cannot say that I will produce negative footballs. You have to produce something, or you can say that I'm not producing anything. That's what could be done at the maximum thing. So in this case, what we do is we set up these subjectivity constraints, or the values where we've got the important constraints to be set. Constraint meaning I cannot go beyond this, because if I say I've got unlimited resources like that, I'll just keep on making stuff, but that's not possible. There are limited resources to be dealing with. So here I can just to show you how to add the constraint, you can click on add. Once you click on add, okay, you will be asked what is the cell reference. So you can just go to the cell reference. Okay, this is my cell reference, and you can choose what is the level. Is it greater than, less than, so on. So I've done this less than calculation, or this less than setup in this cell, because it becomes easier for the constraint to be set. So you're going to check these values, okay, and then you're going to check the constraint as well. So if it's less than equal to the value available, then we can keep going on working with the data. So for now, I'll just cancel this. Okay, I'm back to my situation that I've been working with. Now at this point, I'll just click on solve. Now when you click on solve, you will see that after a few seconds, it does go ahead and solve the entire stuff. And then you can say keep solver solution to show it. So click on OK. When you click on OK, you can see that you have got about 120 units of basketballs to make if you want to make maximum profit, and no footballs that should be made, because that will somewhere or the other de-optimize or kind of give a minimum value solution, which we don't want. We want an optimum solution in this case. Okay. Perfect. So that's how you work with solver. Now let's talk about how to work with the advanced functions like lookup functions. So we'll now look up or use the lookup functions for understanding how to work with VLOOKUP. So I'll close this because I've got all my lookup functions in another file called as the lookup functions, or the file 3-lookup functions. Okay. Now here, first thing first, let me understand, or let me first make you understand what we need to do in terms of the lookup functions. So tomorrow anyways, I'll be doing a full-fledged case study. Hopefully we are able to complete the case study, because tomorrow is like the main project that we have to work with. So we've got understanding how to work with sales performance, analyzing data using formulas, etc. So I'll be doing this in tomorrow's session. Okay, now to begin with, let's go to this sheet, index and match customers. I'll just take a very simple example. Here we've got the roll number of the student and the name of the student. Okay. And we've got the subject code and we've got the subject name of the student. Now what I want is, I want to get the name of the student once the roll number is provided for the student. Okay. Also, maybe I would want to get the subject code once the subject name is, I would want to get the subject name once the subject code is provided or used in a simple drop down. Okay, so let's break this down and understand how this actually works. Okay, let me make a better data set, because I think this is really too small. Just give me 1 minute. I think I will explain how the VLOOKUP works now, and then maybe tomorrow we'll do a full-fledged training on how to work with this. Okay, so all the queries pertaining to free certificates, etc., whatever is there, please connect with the backend team and don't put any questions pertaining to certifications or anything to the Zoom chat right now. Please, it's a sincere request. Don't put in any messages related to that. Okay. You can directly connect with the backend team, and maybe your WhatsApp group will have all the information there as well. Don't worry, your certificates will be given provided you have fulfilled all the criteria for getting the certificate. Okay, now here what we need is we've got the information, okay, and there's some information provided, okay, and I don't have the information, so I'll just first get rid of this because I want to show you how to get this. I'll give you an example. So here I've got the quantity. Here I need the rate to get the revenue. And I also want to find out how much money is coming in from the product, the consumables, etc. So all that information is required. So I'm going to show you how to work with lookup functions, index and match, and simultaneously I will also show you how to work with the pivot tables for today, because that is what is also pending from yesterday. So I showed you the working with the text function yesterday. Today we'll work with the lookup functions. And if time is there, I will also show you another useful function that is there to work with. Anyways, so here I've got some information about the customer account number, the customer name. I have to find out the state of the customer because the boss wants me to know first how much revenue is coming in from the different states. But along with that, okay, I also want to find out what is the product line that each of the customer is purchasing, which product line, which product and what product line is the company actually selling to the customers. And also I have got the rate which is mentioned on the products table. I need to get that unit price and I need to fulfill or fill it in the column. Once I do that, using the formula quantity multiplied by the rate, the revenue will be calculated because the formula is already mentioned there in the cell, what formula is required to be dealt with. So to begin with, let's start with my state data. Now the state data is available on the customer's sheet. I've got account, customer, state, and type. Now, please ignore any other data that's there on the sheet. We are only concerned with this data that I'm just highlighting because this data is dealing with the VLOOKUP or the range format. Now, when you say range format, you have to manually enter all the data there and also manually go ahead and select that particular range while working with the formula. So I think we'll just do that. Let's go ahead to the invoices table. Now, what I want to find out what is the state or which state does Honda Motors belong to. This is the name of the company because it's a B2B company that we are dealing with, which is selling printers. And this is one of the companies that is there, Honda Motors. So here I need to get the value. So what I will do is I will look up, okay, this is 120. I'll go to my customers table. I will search for 120 and then return to Honda Motors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever basic number of values you can find out manually. But here we've got 500 entries. Do we have that much time? Absolutely not. And why should we waste so much time when we have Excel with us? So let's go ahead and find out what we actually need to do. So here I'm going to go to the invoices table. And then for the state column, I will start with an equal to sign in the first cell. And then I will use the function VLOOKUP. Hit the tab key to introduce or invoke the new function VLOOKUP. Now here I will use Shift F3 again because it's a new function and I don't want to kind of mess it up now. So my first argument over here is the lookup value. So this is LUPV. That is your lookup value. Then you've got the table array. Table array is basically the table from which you are going to be dealing with the data. So that's your master table. Then you have column index number. Now from the master table, which column would you want to extract? So you've got the column index number. Now you can choose, like for example, you've got in your customers table, you have got the state at column index number 3. Now, how do we count it? Whenever we look at the data, we see all the columns that we have, and from whichever row that particular is there, or whichever column that particular value is. Like for example, here I've got my customer account number, right? Customer account number. Now this customer account number is in column 1, so it's okay. I can utilize it directly for my VLOOKUP function. Okay. So what I'm going to do is my lookup value is going to be the customer account number, because I want to find out the details of the customer, or the details of the customer's state and type that we are dealing with in terms of the automotive and financial companies that is there listed on this particular data. So customer account is my lookup value. Now remember, lookup value is always the value from the leftmost column of the master table or the lookup table. So my lookup array or my lookup table is the sales table. Okay. And we need to be careful about how we're going to set it up. So I put my cursor into this table array, and when you put this into the table array, you have to go and manually select the table array. So to select the array, what we do is we're just going to go ahead and go to the customer sheet. Now this data, if you select any cell, you will not see a table design. Okay. And this is the problem with respect to the range format. Now in the range format, there are certain problems while you're working with formulas as well. I'll just show it to you right now. So my table array is going to be this data. I just manually selected because there's not a lot of data. Okay. And once I've selected it, okay. Yeah. So I'm starting off with A1 and going right up to D21. Okay. Now we can click on OK. Sorry, we have to now enter the column index number. So for the column index number, I am interested in the state column. Now please understand that column index number is an invisible number. It doesn't have anything to do with A, B, C, D, whatever. So here it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, and this is 4. Now please remember that when you're dealing with this, you have to choose the column index number and not the column name, not A, B, C, D. Otherwise, your VLOOKUP is going to go for a toss. Okay, it'll give you an error. So column index number, as it suggests, as its name suggests, we need to provide a number. And the number here will be 3 because I want to find out the customer's state that I'm dealing with. Now comes the range lookup calculation. Now for the range lookup, I need to find out whether the data that I'm dealing with is going to be an exact match that is 0 or false, or whether it will be 1, which is approximate match, or true. Now, when do we use 0 and when do we use 1? I'll explain that to you with an example after I finish this. In this case, I'm going to use 0 because, because for every customer account that we have only one customer name that is there. Okay. And that we need to understand. That's in the master table, not in this table. This is actually the transaction table that is there. So for the range lookup, I'm going to put 0 here and I'm going to press enter. Now, before I do that, whenever you work with the function arguments dialog box, you don't have to manually write down these commas. So that's a very useful thing. But when you work with more complex formulas, using the formula builder will not really help or serve the purpose. So when I click OK, it will automatically send the data down, but it will stop till here. Now, the reason why it is stopped till here is because if I look at this cell, it picks up the data correctly, or it picks up the reference correctly, A1 to D21. The moment I move to the next cell, it becomes A2 to D22. Now, this is a big problem. The problem here is that in a range format, I have to ensure that I lock my range whilst I'm working with the formula. Because if I don't do that, it'll keep shifting down. So I will press F4 after selecting the entire range, not F3, F4. it'll pick up a dollar sign for both it'll lock both the starting and the ending range. Okay, the cells. Now you can hit enter, and when you hit enter again, you have the same calculation done, but without the errors. So you've got the states all calculated using these particular methods. Now, I will explain to you what is the use of, so using the same approach, I can just bring this data and put it into the type column. The only difference is I will change this from 3, that is the column index number, from 3 to 4, and press enter. So that gives me the state and the type of the customer. Now, one more thing I will generate, and then I will show you how to use it with the pivot table. We still have a little bit of time before we close for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find out the rate of the product that is there. Now the rate is actually on the products table. And if you see, when I click within the products table, there is a table design tab available. And that table design tab is basically available because your data is formatted as a table. So what you do is you go ahead to the invoices table, you go to the rate column equal to VLOOKUP, hit the tab key. Now next is you have the lookup value. So for the lookup value, you're interested in picking up the part number. So part number is basically the first column in your data. Hence, we are taking a part number. So we'll pick up part number P1323, select it, and that's going to be the lookup value, because this is going to form my first column, okay, part of the first column. So I've got part number. Then I'm going to put in the table array. So I'll put in comma. Now for my table array, I can go to the products table and manually select the table. But I won't do that because I want to show you one very interesting thing. For now, I'm just pressing escape. Your customers was formatted as a range, so it did not have the table design tab. But your products is formatted as a table and it is having a table design tab. Also, if you can see carefully here, it does have a products table name. So the table name is also there. The table name is products. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this name inside my formula here. So how does that work? I'm going to simply go to the invoices table, and here I'm going to type equal to, so rate before I do anything. The products table, the unit price, which is actually the rate, is in the 4th column index number. Please understand that it does not make a difference if my data starts from column A or whether it starts from column Z. This will always be 1 because this is my starting of the table. This will be 2, this will be 3, and this will be 4. Please understand these numbers are absolutely invisible. They're not written anywhere. This is relative to the start of the actual master table that you're working with. So unit price is in column number 4 and product line is in column number 3. So what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and get the column 3 from the product line as well. So equal to VLOOKUP, hit the tab key. Now my lookup value is part number. The reason it's part number because this is the first column, or this comes from the column which is actually the first column of the master table, okay, or basically the lookup table. So that's my part number. It's the leftmost column, and then I put a comma. Now for the table array, I won't go and manually select the data. I will just put in the name of the table. So PROD. Okay, you've got product, and there are so many other products, etc. So you have to look out for your named range. Okay, your named range is products. You can just select it, press the tab key. That's my table array. Then everything else is simple. It's comma, and then you need to get just 3, the third column from the product table, comma, and then you put in true or false. Now you put in false here. The reason we put in false is because I wanted an exact match. Now you will close your bracket and you will press enter. So when you do that, you get the entire product line calculated. If you just use control and down arrow key, you can see all your product lines have been calculated. Now moving on to getting the rate of the data. So I already have the revenue calculated. Today I'll get the rate. So equal to VLOOKUP. Now in order to get the rate, again I'm going to use the part hash or the part number column. And then I'll put a comma. The name of the table that I'm dealing with is the products table. Hit the tab key to invoke your products table. Because the moment you see it in the autocomplete, you just press tab when it is blue. Then you put a comma. Now you have to put the column index number. So for rate, the column index number is 4. I'm going to put in 4. Then I'm going to put a comma. And now I have to choose what is my range lookup. So my range lookup in this case, again, is an exact match. Because I want to find out exactly what is the rate of that particular product. Because one product cannot have more than one rate. That's not possible and not even ethically right. So I'll just press enter. And you will see that based on the rate, automatically the revenue also has been calculated. Okay, so this is the advantage of using VLOOKUP. And whenever you use VLOOKUP, whatever you do, you can easily get the values from another table into it. So one last topic for the entire thing. And then tomorrow we'll be doing more of array functions and some tips and tricks on how to work with data. That is pivot tables. Now, actually pivot table is a topic that kind of deserves a lot more, working. But unfortunately, because of the paucity of time, I will just explain pivot table. But tomorrow anyways, I'll be explaining it a little better and how to work with it. Okay, so here what we're going to do is, I'm going to go ahead to the table design tab and click on the summarize with pivot table. When you click it, you will see that it says, do you want to select a table or range? Now, because my data, my invoices table is already, or my invoices range of data is already in a table format, you can see it has automatically picked up the name of the table. That is invoices. And it chooses where you want to put in, or where do you want to put in the data. Do you want to put in an existing sheet, or do you want to put it on a new worksheet? I normally prefer putting all my data that is for pivot tables onto a new worksheet. Click on OK. Now, when you click OK, you should see you have got this pivot table analyze and pivot table design tabs that are available. These tabs are contextual tabs. Why are they called contextual tabs? They're called contextual because the moment you click outside your boundary of the pivot table, they will not be available for you. Okay. So first thing first, how do we use or approach this particular situation? So a pivot table, if you click within the boundary, it shows you the pivot table fields list, and it shows you the different areas where you can work with your pivot table. So there's filters area, there is columns area, there is rows area, and there's values area. Now I'm interested in finding out what is the total revenue generated by a particular state. So first thing, if I click on a checkbox for a numerical field, okay, it will automatically go to the values area. Then I want to find out, so I've got the total revenue over here. That's about 45.2 that's 452,213.14 USD. Okay, because this is a US based company, so let's just keep it as USD. Now, in a pivot table, you never work at the cell level. So if I apply a formatting, it's not going to work at this level. It's going to work at the entire field level, value field level. So here you can just right click and you can go ahead and you can go to value field settings. Now, when you go to value field settings, you can choose the number format from here, and you can choose the number format as accounting with a dollar number formatting and 0 decimal places, and click OK. Once you click OK once again, you get this value as $452,213. Now I want to break this down into a state values. So I can simply click on the state over here. When I click on this checkbox, you can see magically the entire data is going to break down. That's not it. It also allows you to prepare pivot charts out of this. So you can simply go to the insert tab, and from here you can choose a recommended chart, and pick up, let's say, a clustered column chart and click OK. So what it does within a jiffy, once the data is ready, it helps you to prepare the visuals as well. Okay, so on this note, we will stop the session for today. There was a lot to kind of process today for all of you. So please go and watch the recording again. I'll see you all tomorrow. Anam, we can close the session today.
Sure, sir. You can do. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.